Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Paripuracharya Ashto Tirusata Shri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sadhu Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Govinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Tham Ki Jai Navadip Tham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotee. All glories to the assembled devotee. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande.
Hare Krishna, welcome everybody to Caitanya Charitamrita reading with His Holiness Jayādvaita Swami. It is Thursday, March 5th, 2026. We are beginning with Caitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, Chapter 1, Text 96.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Bhate Nanalila Rasha Deva Darashan Madhava Purir Katha Gopal Stapon. On the way toward Jagannath Puri, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed many other pastimes. He visited various temples and heard the story about Madhavendra Puri and the installation of Gopal. Purport: this Madhava Puri is Madhavendra Puri. Another Madhava Puri is Madhavacharya, who was the spiritual master of a devotee in the line of Vedanta Pandit, and who wrote a book known as Sri Mangal Bhashya. Madhavacharya, however, is different from Madhavendra Puri, who is mentioned in this verse. Kshir Churi Katha Sakshi Gopal Bibaron Nityananda Koila Prabhur Danda Banjan. From Nityananda Prabhu, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard the story of Kshirachuri Gopinath and of the witness Gopal. Then Nityananda Prabhu broke the sannyas rod belonging to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Purport: this Kshirachuri Gopinath is situated in Remuna, about 4 miles away from the Baleshwara Balasore station on the Northeastern Railway, formerly known as the Bengal Mayapur Railway. This station is situated a few miles away from the famous Kharagpur Junction station. Some time ago, the charge of the temple was given to Shamsundar Adhikari from Gopi-Ballabhpur, which lies on the border of the district of Midnapur. Shamsundar Adhikari was a descendant of Rasikananda Murari, the chief disciple of Shyamananda Goswami. A few miles before the Jagannath Puri station is a small station called Sakshi Gopal. Near this station is a village named Satyavadi, where the temple of Sakshi Gopal is situated. Do I have a pen? Yes, I do.
Ramesh, is your volume all the way up?
Probably not. Let's fix it. Hold on 1 second. Volume. No. That's probably better now, isn't it?
Yes, it's better now.
Okay. So, Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Shapadantikam Pandehang Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shadrajatam Shahagana Raganatan Vitam Stam Sujivam Shadvaitam Savadhutam Parijanam Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Shahagana Lolita Shri Vishwakan Vitamscha He Krishna Kuruna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshri Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Puri Priye Mancha Golpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Pyevacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jayādvaita Vedanta Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. In this first chapter of Madhya Lila, Kaviraj Goswami is summarizing pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he'll later describe in detail. For now, they're just getting a mention. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has accepted the sannyas order, and by the order of his mother, he's proceeding from Mayapur, Navadvip, to Jagannath Puri. And these are some of his activities along the way. He visits the various temples, in particular the temple of Shirachor Gopinath and Sakshi Gopal. And in connection with Shirachor Gopinath, there are activities described concerning Madhavendra Puri, the grand spiritual master of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Ramuna is the place where Shirachor Gopinath is situated. And that's a very wonderful place. Directions are there how to get to Shirachor Gopinath Temple, Sakshi Gopal Temple. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has his sannyas rod broken by Nityananda Prabhu significantly. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu reaches the Jagannath Temple. Sakshi Gopal Temple is not far from Puri itself. Ramuna's some further distance toward the Bengal side. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu paints in the Jagannath Temple. Now let's see. We haven't done that yet. Krudahan Ekagela Jagannath Dekite Dekia Murchita Han Parila Bhumite. After his sannyas rod was broken by Nityananda Prabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu apparently became very angry and left his company to travel alone to the Jagannath Temple. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu entered the Jagannath Temple and saw Lord Jagannath, he immediately lost his senses and fell down on the ground. Sarvabhauma la gela apana pavan tritiya prohare prabhur haila Chaitan. After Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw Lord Jagannath in the temple and fell down unconscious, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya took him to his home. The Lord remained unconscious until the afternoon, when he finally regained his consciousness. Nityananda Jagadananda Damodar Mukund Pache Ashi Mili Shobe Paila Anand. The Lord had left Nityananda's company and had gone alone to the Jagannath temple. But later, Nityananda, Jagadananda, Damodar, and Mukunda came to see him. And after seeing him, they were very pleased. The Lord's associates had been with him, but the Lord went ahead, and then these devotees caught up and came to know that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had come to the temple that he'd painted, that he'd been brought to the home of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Tabe Sarvabhaume Prabhu Prasad Korila Apon Ishar Murti Tare De Kaila. I see. Tare De Kaila. After this incident, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bestowed his mercy upon Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya by showing him his original form as the Lord. The history of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is a major topic in the Madhya Lila, how he was delivered, although a staunch logician and not a devotee, impersonalist, how he was delivered by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and became one of the staunch devotees of the Lord. Tobe ta korila Prabhu tokin gomon kurma kshetre koila vasudeva bimochan. After bestowing mercy upon Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the Lord started for southern India. When he came to Kurmakshetra, he delivered a person named Vasudeva. Vasudeva was, in fact, a leper, and he was delivered from leprosy and from material existence by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Jyada Nrshinghe Koilo, Nrshingas Tobon, Pote Pote Grame Grame Nama Pravarton. After visiting Kurmakshetra, the Lord visited the South Indian temple of Jyada Nrsinga and offered his prayers to Lord Nrsingadev. On his way, he introduced the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra in every village. This Kurmakshetra, there's a temple of Kurmadev, and the temple, the shrine of the deity is situated way down, subterranean, what would you say, temple room. So it's rather humid and a little watery down there. So it's a suitable place for Kurmadev. That's, as I recall, close to the border of Orissa and Bengal.
Orissa and Andhra.
Orissa and Andhra. Yeah. So Kurmakshetra, yes, South Indian temple. So Jyada Nrsinga, there, as Prabhupada will mention, several Nrsinga temples in that area. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is chanting Hare Krishna, which in South India, to be doing chanting and dancing is something revolutionary. They're more for rituals and reciting Vedic verses and so on. Godavari Tira Bane, Vrindavan Pam, Ramananda Rai Saha Tahai Milon. Once, the Lord mistook the forest on the bank of the river Godavari to be Vrindavan. In that place, he happened to meet Ramananda Roy. The meeting of Ramananda Roy and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is another major topic. Sri Mala Tripadi Sthan Koila Dorashan Sarvatra Korila Krishna Nam Pracharan. He visited the places known as Tirumala and Tirupati, where he extensively preached the chanting of the Lord's holy name. Purport: this holy place is situated in the district of Tanjore, Chittoor, South India. The temple of Tirupati is situated in the valley of Venkatachal and contains the deity of Lord Ramchandra. On the top of Venkatachal is the famous temple of Balaji, Balaji is Venkateshwar, very celebrated deity throughout South India and visited by people from all over India, all over the world even. Very big temple and situated on hill, the Tirumala and Tirupati. So the bottom of, and there are many surrounding temples, especially mentioned here is the temple of Lord Ramchandra. And there are others also associated with, and all under the jurisdiction of the managing authority of the Tirupati Tirumala Devasthan. Srila Prabhupada also visited the temple of Balaji and appreciated the temple. Tabita Pashondi Gone Korila Dolan Ahobala Nishingari Koilo Doroshan. After visiting the temples of Tirumala and Tirupati, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had to subdue some atheists. He then visited the temple of Ahobala Nrsinga. Purport: the Ahobala temple is situated in Dakshinatya, in the district of Karnula, within the subdivision of Sarvela. Throughout the whole district, this very famous temple is much appreciated by the people. There are 8 other temples also, and all of them together are called the Navanashringa temples. There's much wonderful architecture and artistic engraving work in these temples. However, as stated in the local gazette, the Karnula Manual, the work is not complete. In South India particularly, there are many temples, Vishnu temples, Nrsinga temples, sometimes temples of Lord Ramchandra. Krishna temples are fewer, although in Madhvacharya's place, Udupi, the temple of Krishna is very prominent. And there are others, but especially because the worship is with awe and reverence and so on. So Ramchandra and Nrsingadev and Lord Vishnu. Yes, Saraswati.
Pranams Parampuja Gurudev and all the Vaishnavas. Guru Maharaj, this, the atheists that's mentioned here, is that the pastime with the Buddhists, that some Buddhists got punished because they were trying to serve Mahaprabhuji some meat, something like that?
That's what comes to my mind. He has some wrangling with the Tattvavadis also, but they weren't atheists. So the Buddhists come to my mind as being a likely reference here. We'd have to check, but that's what comes to my mind. Yes. Anything else? Pretty poor.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, is there, I had heard somewhere that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had dealt with even atheists very kindly. Is there some principle that he followed to subdue the atheist, which is mentioned in the Shastras?
Is there somewhat? Principle. According to their first principle is you see where they stand. In any argument, this is the first principle. What does the opposition say? Yes. What does the opposition say? Otherwise, who am I arguing against? If I don't know your position, how can I speak to it? So the first thing is I have to hear. What is it that you're saying? Otherwise, I'm arguing, but I may not be touching your point of view, or I may be only glancing off it and not addressing it directly. The first principle is to hear. We saw that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was also essentially an atheist. Sat and listened for so many days. All right, let's hear your understanding of Vedanta Sutra. So in dealing with anyone who has something to say, whether it's in philosophy or in management or household arguments or anything, so where does the other party stand? Maybe they agree with me. All points, some points, we don't really know. So the most important thing, first of all, is to hear. What are they saying? Then we can answer. Sometimes somebody says, I'm a Buddhist, but when you talk to him, you find out that he's not really a Buddhist. He's something else. Maybe he's an agnostic, maybe he's has some other idea. Or they say, I follow such and such. But then when you hear from him, no, he's not really following such and such. He has a different idea. So no point arguing against what he says he is. You have to see what is he actually saying. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's position, and that's consistent. Amanina amanadena, giving respect to others. All right, hear them out. Let them have their say. There was a famous incident where Kirtananda, one of Prabhupada's disciples, was speaking in the early days, 1960s, speaking his understandings from his readings of impersonalist philosophy. And Prabhupada just let him go on. And then he said some more. Prabhupada said, are you finished? And Kirtananda went on. Are you finished? Then when finally he was finished, then Prabhupada blasted him. Then Prabhupada took apart his philosophy. All right, have your say. Not that we have to cut you off. No, let's hear the whole, bring it on. Let's hear the whole thing. So that's a first principle. Then, according to what he says, you may bring different evidence to bear. You may have different arguments. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was talking with the Pathans during his travels, some Afghani soldiers who were Muslims. So he argued with them on the basis of the Quran, because that's their authority. So he argued on that basis. Similarly with Chankaji, of course, the Pathans, there was someone among them who was known to be a little learned, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave some particular arguments. Chankaji wasn't expected to be a scholar, but still Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made reference to the Quran, his authority. In terms of what makes for evidence, nothing beats the authority that the person himself accepts. I may have my authority, you may have your authority, but the authority of the person I'm arguing against, he accepts the Quran. All right, then let's show it from the Quran. I was arguing with someone one time, and he was from a popular meditation society that's been going on since the 60s. And I gave him an argument. I deliberately gave him an argument from quotations from the Upanishads. And he came back. I think he'd been trained, how do you respond to Hare Krishna? And said, well, we don't, the Puranas are considered less authoritative. So I didn't quote from the Puranas, that was the Upanishads. And so that's your authority. You accept only Upanishads. All right. We'll argue from the Upanishads. So whatever the person himself accepts as authority, if we argue from that, that may have power. Otherwise, we have our authority, you take it or leave it, but these are the statements of our authority. Of course, when they don't accept authority, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was meeting with most of his, many, they accepted Vedic authority. So he could quote freely from Vedic authority. But the Muslims accept Quran. And the Buddhists, they have their own idea. So then you have to argue on other grounds, sometimes logic, sometimes something else. So there's no just one set of arguments for every atheist. Every atheist has his own story, although so often the same thing is really being said, and therefore the same arguments are relevant. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you so much, Maharaj. And Maharaj, can we say that atheism is because some people adopt atheism out of laziness or because it is more convenient for them?
Yeah, there are different reasons. Laziness means the mode of ignorance. So, pramada lasya nidra nibidnati. So certainly ignorance, the mode of ignorance. Not that they're totally ignorant. God is there, scriptures are there, but they choose to ignore them. Usually it's not so innocent as just being lazy. It's also there, depending, can be obstinacy and really an unwillingness. The root cause is unwillingness to act according to one's eternal identity as the servant of God, of Krishna. I don't want to serve. I want to enjoy. So how does God come into my picture? Well, one way is, he's irrelevant. He's a myth. He's a crutch. He's this, he's that. There's no God. So while the cat's away, the rats will play. The rats want to play, so they tell themselves there's no cat. The cat's away. Meanwhile, the cat is controlling everything. But there's cat's away. We can play. So often it's not simply an innocent sort of laziness, but at the root of it, we're not here in the material world just out of laziness. We're here out of refusal to accept our eternal relationship with Krishna. We don't like the idea of serving. We want to control and enjoy Ishvaro Ham. Is that all right?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Maharaj. And should we refrain from speaking to people who are atheist and who are unwilling, as you mentioned? There is unwillingness. Because if there is unwillingness,
in general, we don't waste our time with them. Those who are committed. Oh, and there's another reason, by the way, the lack of pious activities. Obstinacy, stubbornness, and a lack of pious activities probably gives these two things. Person who has some pious credit, when you start talking about God or moving toward an understanding of God, then they're a little open. They may not be theists, actively theistic, but if they have some pious credit, they'll listen. But those who are thoroughly devoid of pious credit, they don't want to hear it. They'll argue, anything, because they're rebellious and because they have no pious credit. So those who are adamant, we may not waste time with them. They'll go on and on. There's nothing you can say. There's a sort of a guideline in argumentation that you can ask, what would it take to persuade you of a different point of view? And if the person says nothing, there's nothing that would persuade, then no use talking to you. Your mind is closed. You're not going to accept any, even the most reasonable argument. Nothing will be, the world could turn upside down and it wouldn't convince you of anything. So it's rule one in arguing with fanatics: don't. So when a person, and that's mentioned among the 10 offenses, not to preach the glories of the Lord to the faithless persons. The person may be a little open, little willing to hear, all right, we'll speak with them. But if a person is adamantly atheistic, offensive, scoffing, mocking, why will we waste our time with it? Therefore, among the book distributors, it's no, just go on to the next person. Don't waste time with this fool. You'll just commit offenses and waste your time also. Is that okay?
Thank you, Maharaj.
Sri Rangakshetra Aila Kaberir Tiro Sri Rangadekia Preme Oila Astir. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to the land of Sri Rangakshetra on the bank of the Kaveri, he visited the temple of Sri Ranganath and was there overwhelmed in the ecstasy of love of Godhead. So this is another of the great temples of South India, Ranganath Mandir. Very big, expansive temple. I think Prabhupada said biggest temple in India is Ranganath Mandir. These temples are like great fortresses. So Ranganath Temple is there. And on the bank of the Kaveri, Kaveri is one of the principal holy rivers, Ganga, Jamuna, Godavari, Saraswati, Kaveri. When the Padayatra visited in 1985 Sri Rangam, the Brahmins received the party with a Purna Kumbha reception, which is a big ceremonious reception. All the temples, only the exception being Jagannath Mandir, Orissa. All the South Indian Brahmins, the strictest temples, they all admitted the foreign devotees. Only in the temple of Jagannath and the temples under the Jagannath Sevite jurisdiction were the devotees, foreign devotees excluded. Chimala Pater Kore Koila Prabhu Bash Dahai Rahila Prabhu Barshat Jarimash. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lived at the house of Chimala Bhatta for the 4 months of the rainy season. And we hear how he was served there by Chimala Bhatta and his son, Gopal Bhatta. Sri Vaishnav Chimala Bhatta Padama Pandit Gosire Panditya Preme Baila Vishmit. Sri Trimala Bhatta was both a member of the Sri Vaishnav community and a learned scholar. Therefore, when he saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was both a great scholar and a great devotee of the Lord, he was very much astonished. Chaturmasya Kaha Prabhu Sri Vaishnaver Shanik Gwaila Nitya Gita Krishna Sankirtani. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu passed the Chaturmasya months with the Sri Vaishnavas, singing, chanting the holy name, and dancing. Again, very unusual for South India. South Indian Vaishnavas are certainly devotees, but they're not inclined toward ecstatic chanting and dancing. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spent his time among them in that way. Chaturmasya ante puna dokhin gomon Paramananda Puri Shaha Kahai Milan. After this, Krishnadas, the servant of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was delivered from the clutches of a Bhaktahari. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then preached that Lord Krishna's name should also be chanted by Brahmanas who are accustomed to chanting Lord Rama's name. Purport. In the Malabar district, a section of the Brahmanas are known as Nambudiri Brahmins, and the Bhattaharis are their priests. Bhattaharis know many tantric black arts, such as the art of killing a person, of bringing him under submission, and of destroying, devastating him. They are very expert in these black arts, and one such Bhattahari bewildered the personal servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, while the servant accompanied the Lord in his travels through South India. Somehow or other, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu delivered this Krishnadas from the clutches of the Bhattahari. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is well known as Patita Pavan, the savior of all fallen souls, and he proved this in his behavior toward his personal servant, Krishnadas, whom he saved. Sometimes the word Bhattahari is misspelled in Bengal as Bhattamahari. Would you like to read it?
Yes. Next. Sri Rangapuri Saha Kahai Milana Ramadasa Viprera Kaila Dukha Vimochana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then met Sri Rangapuri and mitigated all the sufferings of a Brahmana named Ramdas.
This Ramdas was afflicted by the lamentation that Ravan had abducted Sita. He was deeply absorbed in that mood, and therefore he was in lamentation. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was able to satisfy him.
Tatvavadi Saha Kaila Tatvera Vichara Apanake Hina Buddhi Hoila Tansa Bara. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also had a discussion with the Tattvavadi community, and the Tattvavadis felt themselves to be inferior Vaishnavas. Perfect. The Tattvavadi sect belongs to Madhavacharya's Vaishnava community, but its behavior differs from strict Madhavacharya Vaishnava principles. There is one monastery named Uttararadi, and one of its commanders was named Raghuvarya Tirtha Madhavacharya.
Madhvacharya.
Madhvacharya.
Madhva, yeah. Okay.
Ananta Purushottama Shri Janardana Padmanabha Vasudeva Kaila Darshana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then visited the Vishnu temples of Anantadeva, Purushottama, Sri Janardana, Padmanabha and Vasudeva. A temple of Ananta Padmanabha Vishnu is situated in the Trivandrum district, Thiruvananthapuram. This temple is very famous in those quarters. Another Vishnu temple named Sri Janardhan is situated about 26 miles north of the Trivandrum district, near the railway station called Varkala.
This temple of Ananta Padmanabha is a famous temple. Prabhupada had one devotee from Andhra, disciple. He gave him the name Ananta Padmanabha. The temple has very big deity declining of Lord Vishnu. Now let me think, yes, that temple, just as we have in our temples, we'll have typically, like here in Vrindavan, we have 3 altars, one Gaurnitai, one Krishna Balaram, one Radha Shamsundar. So there also they have 3 doors.
Okay.
And the temples in South India, typically, we have bright fluorescent lights and all of that, but the temple chambers in the South Indian temples are typically quite dark. And even the altar itself will typically be dark. Maybe some ghee lamps, few ghee lamps, so that you can see something. So you're in that temple room, and 3 doors are there. And when your eyes adjust to the light, you can see that actually all 3 doors expose one deity. And the deity is Padmanabha, Lord Vishnu, lying down. And on one altar you can see his feet, one altar you can see the middle part of his body. Not one altar, one door. One altar, the Lord is there. But through the different doors, here you'll mostly see his feet, here you'll mostly see his middle part of the body. Here you'll see upper part, head. Very big deity. Majestic deity. And Lord Brahma's there. He's Padmanabha. Padmanabhaja, born from the body from the navel of Lord Vishnu. That temple is very rich also. Some years ago, discovery was made that there was in some chamber of the temple a huge treasure of what we would call deity paraphernalia, gold and silver, what have you. I'm not quite sure what the government chose to do about that. But they discovered, because that was the system. These temples were like big forts, and there were so much royal opulent paraphernalia for worshiping the deity, and the deity would own so much land in the nearby surrounding area that would be dedicated to the service of the deity. And that was the system. It's famously remembered that at one point the king of that area came to the temple of Ananta Padmanabha along with his ministers and retinue, and placed his sword before the deity, at the feet of the deity. And now this whole kingdom is yours. Not now, but it's yours. I acknowledge that this is all your property. Then he took his sword back and he ruled as the servant of the deity. Famous incident in the history of the temple. Now the governments want to plunder the assets of the deities. When they learn that there's some treasure, that there's some wealth, then they start to think of what programs they could use that for. And of course, so much goes into private hands, political hands of the political leaders. And if there's some land, they think, oh, we can sell this land and they'll make some excuse. This can be used for poor people, for this, for that. So they strip the land they plunder the wealth. This is the unfortunate situation with so many modern leaders. But traditionally, the deity is acknowledged. He's the real owner of everything. This Varkala temple is another prominent temple, not as huge and well known, on the coast and very beautifully situated. There's a plateau, kind of plateau, and beneath that is the ocean. And nearby is the temple, and they have a big tank, a big pond, we would say, I guess, big tank, water. And the atmosphere is very pleasing. Under the coconut trees and the shady areas, and with the sea breeze. The karmis like to go to Kovalam, not so far away, a place where there's just sense gratification, just as there's so many beaches for sense gratification. So the foreigners and the others go to the Kovalam beach, but the spiritually minded would go to places of pilgrimage. This is the difference. The materialists, if there's a beach, if there's a hill, if there's something, a forest, then they make a hotel, they make a casino, they make restaurants, and the devotees, if there's such a place, then they make a temple. Jagannath, so many temples and so many.
Juhu Beach.
Mm.
Juhu Beach.
Yeah, Juhu Beach, yes. Now I've heard also that this Varkala area is also now being commercialized as a tourist destination. Even Puri, they make it a tourist destination for sense enjoyment. But still, the real enjoyment is devotional service to the deity. Priti Purnamataji.
Maharaj, this is in context to a previous verse where it was mentioned Krishnadas was delivered from the clutches of Bhattahari. So recently also we actually came across some person who were impacted by this Tantra Vidya. So this question was raised, why devotees get impacted with the Tantra Vidya?
Because still there's some tendency for sense gratification. Person who's a perfectly liberated soul can't be affected by any Tantra Vidya or any Maya. Haridas Thakur Maya herself visited. Yes, I'm chanting Hare Krishna. Let me do that business first. Prostitute came. Yes, let me finish my chanting. But if we try that, it won't work the same way. So those whose hearts are completely pure will be unaffected by Tantra Vidya or Sri Vidya. It won't work. But those who still have some tinge of material desire to enjoy, to control, can be affected by these things. Therefore, we're advised, be very careful about our association. By association, bad association, everything can be ruined. And by good association, everything can be established. So we're not so safe that we can just mix with anyone and everything will roll off us like water off a duck's back. No. Maya, Maya Durate. So we have to be very careful. Even the personal associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was affected. And Prabhupada, I believe, cites this as evidence that the soul always has independence. So even from the personal association of the Lord, he can be distracted by illusion. We have to be very careful. All right. Should we have Kirtan? Yes.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnu Bonamun Sukari Prajakacarya Stotra AC Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Nama Charya Shri Das Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Bhashari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath, Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Jagannath Puri ki jai, Ganga Mai ki jai, Jaman Mai ki jai, Tulsi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanande.